We're going to talk about some tailgate safety. And if you have been familiar at all with the TCIA, Tree Care Industry Association, you know that tailgate safety is a major component of getting the very best rates in insurance coverage. And I'll just read you a form that we have here that is published by TCIA. I use it. If you ever expect to become accredited and get your very best insurance rates, this is what you're going to have to start with. A job briefing is required at least once a day or before starting a new job in order to identify and minimize hazards on the job. This form may be used to help document the hazards found. Please place a check mark in the box next to each of the following hazards that are most relevant to this particular job and discuss them. Keep a copy of the completed form in an office file. And I'll just go over this where you fill out the day, date, and time, the crew leader, the type of job that it is. In this case, we're talking about a tree preservation, aeration, and decompaction job. On the hazard side, we have day of the week, time of the day, extreme weather conditions, if any, if you're working in the snow or after a storm in particular, inexperienced personnel, we don't have any, we're not noting that, improper use of personal protective equipment, we are properly using that as well. Distance to electrical conductors is a couple of 100 feet, they're up on the road, we've taken note of that, it does not interfere with this job. Terrain is gradually sloping to reasonably steep at one portion of the critical root zone of these trees. Noise levels are, as always, excessive, and that's why we have the ear protection here. We don't have any new equipment. There are obstacles on this job involved of stored equipment, some lumber and some things like that that the owner has left there and will keep there until such time as he can remove it and then bring us back to complete aeration and decompaction of that portion of it. Traffic control is unnecessary because we're here on a private site. We'll post a sign right there at the driveway for anybody coming in so they'll know there are men in the trees at work. Moving or lifting heavy objects will not be a part of this job, neither will chemicals, and the other considerations are that we have high pressure as always and dirt that will be distributed in various areas and is always a hazard for anyone standing close by. And so we go through each of these. You'll become very familiar with them. You can go through them quickly, and the fact that you can document a tailgate safety meeting every day is going to reinforce and support the safety culture in your company, and that is exactly what the insurance companies want and need to see in order to give you the best rates on your insurance.
As an operator, the guy who is on the end of the gun, you have to be sure that your personal protective equipment, your PPE, is very much functional and ready for the day's use. You have to consider having a pair of gloves. I keep mine on my person at all times. I like having a personal pair of gloves. The coverall suit is very important because if it gets dirty or wet, you either have to dry it out or make sure you have a replacement. Also, you have to take into consideration the conditions. We have a lovely sunny day today, which is sometimes rare because if you're working in wet, misty, rainy conditions, you're going to have to make sure that your shield stays clean. As an operator, your visual sight and your visual acuity is very important because you're more or less proceeding into territory that you don't really know what's under the surface. We here at the Fifth Element Protocol have really taken into account the fact that we go and see guys doing emergency work, especially takedown and removal crews, that will perform their work without any safety gear, and we can't stress how absolutely irresponsible that is. We've seen crews go out with improper clothing, improper footwear, lack of personal protective gear such as hard hat, safety glasses, gloves, or any kind of protective covering such as chaps, any arm guards or brush guards or anything like that. And we happen to think that that's very, very haphazard. It's inviting an accident to happen. And when it does, if you don't have the proper safety gear, you're going to be in trouble. In a lot of the terrain that we work in, we end up disturbing and altering the ground conditions. And so we have to understand that when you're out there doing aeration and decompaction, you need a very good, high quality, high top boot. And the reason I say that is that this footwear, you really don't want to save any money. What you want to do is put the most into proper clothing and footwear, because you're going to fill your shoes up with dirt, you're going to get them dirty, they're going to get wet, and they're also going to be exposed to whatever conditions lie underneath the soil. And so you have to make sure that in any season, summer, spring, winter, fall, no matter what, that you have a cleanup protocol. We at the Fifth Element Protocol like to carry around a rag. A lot of times our gopher, our go-between swingman, will carry a towel because your shield's going to get messy, it's going to get nasty. In the summertime, you're going to be covered in sweat. In varying conditions, you're going to have levels of moisture, dust, debris, and other particulate matter that if you don't have a clean towel to wipe down with periodically, you're not going to be able to see, you're not going to be able to function properly, and your personal operator is going to be miserable. We here at the Fifth Element Protocol believe in a culture of safety. We do many different actions that include pruning, dirt work, working near streets, and working in highly residential areas. In any case, no matter if you're a ground man, whether you're an operator or you're a consultant, you have to make sure that the area is safe, both to work in for your operator and for passersby. Let me give you an example. There's a lot of times when you're doing pruning and takedown and removal where you have to clear the entire impact zone. If you're near a street, you have to put out your cones and make sure that any cars or walkers passing by stay out of the impact zone. Another good example is that your operator doesn't necessarily see where he's going in making his passes doing aeration and decompaction. A lot of times, especially here at the Fifth Element Protocol, we have a swingman who can move the hose, pay attention to the operator, and keep anybody that might wander into the impact zone out of trouble. It's very important because when you're aerating and decompacting, there's a lot of material that's going to fly around in the 20 or 30 foot radius. When we have a climber in the tree, we have hand signals and vocal commands that make sure that both your climber, your ground man, and anybody in the area knows exactly what's going on before they wander into the impact zone.